Thank you very much for joining the stream. I wanted to start off today with King's Indian Defense, and basically, yeah, take a look at that. We have a few games after that. We have basically 5 games, starting with one, I think, out of the Smith Mora. But yeah, I wanted to start off with the King's Indian Defense. I wanted to try this a little bit differently and basically work off of a famous Grandmaster game. This Grandmaster game is Piquet versus Kasparov, and basically here, Kasparov, who was a big King's Indian Defense player, ran it against Kramnik, who had some good results against him, I think is the history behind it. But basically, looking at Kasparov's old games, they show very strong responses and potential wins for Black out of the King's Indian Defense. I wanted to take a look at this line. Basically, this is the primary King's Indian Defense structure. Bishop on g7, knight f6, d6, castles. This is basically the King's Indian Defense that everyone's sort of familiar with. Has some similarities to the Perk and the Modern. And it often involves a push on e5. This is what was played in this game, but this is the kind of traditional King's Indian Defense pawn break. What ends up happening is basically the pawn will move to d5, the knight will move to e8, the f7 pawn will move to f5, and basically, Black will see a pretty good position going into the middle game. It's got a very well-established pre-made attack here, bishop e3, f5, f3, and basically, Black is in a good place, ready to start attacking. The f5, f4 pawn is well placed. And generally good play for Black. b4, knight f6, c5, knight g6, pawn takes, pawn takes. This pawn provides a potential point of attack, potential liability for Black in this opening. But this attack on the king side, basically is done with relatively good king safety for Black, and g4 push is going to comfortably happen. Probably not pawn takes g4 is generally not played, and basically Black will come up with trying to come up with a tactical combination to break through the king side here. Rook c1, rook f7, and the play is all basically all on the king side for Black and all on the queen side for White. These bishops are facing towards the queen side. These pawns are probably trying to advance and potentially, create like a b6 structure that, can lead to an undermining of b7. But let's take a look. Black stacks a full exchange here. This is aggressive. I guess, ultimately here, it shifts towards basically the exchange, is sacrificed with the idea in mind, g3, and then pawn takes f2 with check, so, this bishop ends up getting taken, this knight ends up getting taken, but this knight ends up getting put back with g3. The potential for pawn takes g3 here is risky. There's tactics. Hey, thanks very much for sending the game, Willem. I'll add the game for May 9th at 6:05 p.m. Eastern, if that's all right with you. It's in my spreadsheet now. Thank you for sending that, Willem. So yeah, overall here, I think Black's basically, pretty good. It's, the tide really shifts around, around this point. It's a Grandmaster level game, so there's not really the same type of, quick shifts in eval that amateur games tend to have. But things like h5 are strong, h5, g4, and basically Black is in a solid place after winning this 2 pawns to a rook. This was not necessary. Knight c7, g3 leads to equalizing for Black, or maybe even Black being slightly better. Hx g3 is better than knight takes rook for sure. H takes g3, f takes g3, bishop takes g3. This kingside attack has diminished. Here, the rook can play to c8, and Black can save the material, and then Black is fine. An alternative is continuing to try to sacrifice that a8 rook for a piece or 2 pieces. Here, knight h5, threatening g3. On knight takes a8, knight takes g3, potentially rook f2, queen takes a8. But overall here, Black is better. So yeah, I wanted to also look at I'll play this front to back and show kind of a good win for black out of this King's Indian defense. This knight d7, knight d7, f5, f4 is pretty good. Hey, good morning, Kiro. Good morning, Aphelion. Thank you both very much for joining. Thanks everyone for being here. Yeah, so basically here, knight d7 and f5, f4 here, bishop f2, g5, and placing pressure on the g4 square, I think is black's path forward. G4, then g3. Here, the position's starting to shift. I mean, this is highest level play, so this is one of the rare cases where engine eval is not necessarily a huge amount better than the players. I mean, this is Kasparov playing black, no, I don't, Kiro. But that's an interesting question. I don't know who that is, but no, I'm very happy that you've managed to join the stream. So yeah, so pawn takes d6. And yeah, actually, on this topic, since you brought it up, Kiro, I'm sort of wondering how to, I guess expand the stream. I'm really hoping that this model of free lessons takes on. I honestly don't care that much. Nah, it doesn't, Kiro. But maybe I'll check it out after the stream. Yeah, no, I don't know that person, but I think it's great if that's a person giving free lessons on chess on Twitch. I think that's great. I mean, honestly, like nothing would make me happier than just the chess lessons model shifting. I don't care that much, to be completely honest, if it's to me or to to some IM or GM. Like, what really would make me happy here is if the business model fundamentally changed. That's why I'm doing this. I believe it's possible. I believe it would benefit a lot of people. So that's why that's why I'm doing it, and that's why I'm working to try to expand the stream. So yeah, any free chess coach, really any free chess coach who requests it, I'll just give a raid to. I have no yeah, see, I'm not particularly interested in that model, Kiro. I think the private lessons deal is just antiquated. We can give basically, one-on-one private lessons. I understand the value of relative to a stream, but as long as we're on this topic, the goal is really to displace people who can't afford, a system that doesn't allow people who can afford chess lessons to or don't have the right, basically don't have the right setup to be paying for chess lessons, to offer them a free option. I think it can be done with modern technology. I think it doesn't have to be me. I'd be very happy if IMs, GMs started chess lesson streams tomorrow. But I'm going to keep pressing on this business model because I'm pretty sure that it offers a huge improvement over over what's currently in place, or what's currently the status quo. So that's, you bring up interesting questions, and I'm always super happy to talk about this. Yeah, here, I'll check it out now. I'm very curious, Hiro. Here, we can even put it on the thing. I'm actually curious because you've raised something interesting. Any free chess coach, of like expert or some type of strength. I don't know this person, to be honest, if they're a titled player or whatever. But anything that sort of moves this general model forward, I'm really happy with. That's the goal. GM, IM, whatever, NM. Cool. Yeah, I mean, no, I think you should be doing live Twitch lessons. I think this is a great step, and I'd hope for even more volume. But no, I hadn't heard of this person, to be honest. But it looks like the right model. It looks like the something of the future model. But to be fair, this looks like these do look like it's the standard Twitch, the Twitch streaming, doesn't it? Like, isn't this like just like playing games against people? Awesome. Yeah, no, I'm really happy to hear that, Tarash. Yeah, no, of course. Thanks, guys. But yeah, no, this is really interesting, Hiro. It doesn't have to be me, is the main point. I'm very happy to give chess lessons, but I have no interest in making any money off of this. I have much more interest in basically, using this to change the way that chess is taught, and hopefully save people who shouldn't be spending money on chess lessons a lot of money. That's really my goal here. I'm very happy to talk at length about it or speak openly about it. But since you've raised the point, Kiro, that's what I'm really pushing for. I couldn't be happier if one of the really popular chess streamers, if Levi Roseman or whoever the most popular chess streamers who are capable of giving good lessons switch to a free lesson stream, I would be super happy with that. I would think that was fantastic. But free live chess lessons, displacing the normal, the previous model is really what I'm shooting for. I think it would really benefit people to be able to have access to that, because it costs a lot of money now that I think is not being spent in the correct way. If it can be free, it seems like it should be. Yeah, no, I'm super happy to talk, and I'm really just, I'm trying to grow the stream for myself, but I would be happy to grow the stream for someone else who's adopted the same model. So anyways, on this topic, I'm super happy with how everything's going. And basically, if there's any, I mean, different models in terms of moving this forward to make chess lessons free and available to everyone, live and free and available. I don't know exactly how to best promote. I really appreciate you guys. I really hope that you guys all tell everyone that you know about this stream, and hopefully, you guys, yeah, you did. You posted that one, Tarash, and, but yeah, I guess I would say, just everyone, I would strongly recommend, either to me or to someone else giving the same business model stream. If you can tell your friends to move them towards this stream or another free lesson stream, that is something that I would really like. But it doesn't have to be me, but from what I can see, this seems to be the stream that's giving the most straightforward free lessons at this point. A lot of streams have kind of diluted it by playing against players and playing against other people. Yeah, absolutely, Kiro. I do. I mean, I want to grow this stream. I would be very happy to also grow an IM or GM who's giving free lessons and is capable of giving live free lessons a day. But yes, I am very interested. I am very interested in growing this stream. But I would also be very interested in supporting streams of IMs or GMs who I know are capable of giving free lessons in this way, and I think would provide the business model that would provide the largest benefit to the world. Yes, I want to grow this stream. I want this stream to pressure other people to give streams similar to this one, and that's really my goal in doing this. I don't want to make any money. I think I've made $120 since the stream has started. I don't care. I don't want any donations. I intentionally don't have a donations button. My goal is really to change the business model and to make chess lessons free and available to everyone. Yeah, no cash here. That I do feel pretty strongly about. I don't want to make any money at this. I don't plan to make any money at this. I'm doing this because I think that the world is best served by free lessons available to everyone regardless of financial situation. And I want to grow this as quickly as possible. So the old model, which basically restricts knowledge, is eliminated. This, that's the logic. Sorry to get distracted. Sorry to go on the soapbox. Very interested in doing this stream. But live free lessons is really the step forward, and I think that this stream demonstrates how it can be done, and hopefully in a way that benefits the world. So that's why I'm on this. That's why I'm doing this. And with that said, yeah, I mean, maybe I would donate to another streamer who's doing this. I guess the chess programs that I've seen generally tend to take money from governments and charities and students to fund their activities, and that to me just seems generally unnecessary. We can give free chess lessons. We can give free chess lessons live to thousands of people. This is something that modern technology allows us to do, and this is something that modern technology, puts us in a moral situation where we should be doing that. People who, first, governments and nonprofit organizations have relatively limited funds. They shouldn't be spending money on things that can be given for free, or resources that can be provided for free. It's immoral to allow that system to continue if we have a better one. So that's that's my thinking on that. That said, I'm really trying to do all I can to grow the stream. I think the growth of this stream and streams following this model is inevitable. I think that's really a good thing. I think it's inevitable that an IM or GM will come up with a stream like this, in the not too distant future, and hopefully displace this one. I'm not a chess teacher. I'm an application developer and someone who worked in finance. This is not my job. I am not a chess teacher. I don't think the number of chess teachers is anywhere near the appropriate number of chess teachers. I think basically that having the government and having nonprofit organizations spend money on chess teachers who are charging money for something that can easily be provided for free is a very immoral system. So that's where I am. This is not my job. I'm not a professional chess teacher. I do not want to be a professional chess teacher, but I want to push things and push the world in the correct direction. That's why I'm doing this. And if anyone wants to spread the word, I really I really appreciate it. But my hope is that I will be displaced by a stronger, better teacher. I'm not a teacher. I really enjoy doing this. It's really fun for me, and I get to learn a lot. But I know that this model can work. I know that this can be done at a scale of 1,000 people, and that's where and that's what the system should be. Governments and money, or governments and nonprofit organizations and students should not be paying money for something that can be given for free. And I'm hoping that the world will benefit from me trying to push things in this direction. That's my logic. Anyways, sorry to go on the soapbox. I could talk at length about this, but I don't think that's the point of this stream. So thank you all very much for being here, and please tell your friends about me, or please tell your friends about someone else, someone stronger than me doing exactly the same concept. I mean, this is the future, in my opinion, and anyone who works to move this forward so that nonprofit organizations can allocate their money more efficiently. That I think is a really good thing. So anyways, I really appreciate all your guys' support with the stream. I really appreciate you all being here. Please tell your friends, but also if something better comes along in this model, please tell your friends about that one too. Anyways, if it's not necessary, yeah, I guess I would say I do think that it's immoral to charge money for something that can be given for free, or to charge governments or other benevolent organizations money for something that can be given for free. That I do feel that way. So I'm glad that you allowed me to clarify that. Thank you very much, Darkslide. Well, I mean, that's and I guess the extension of your question, Darkslide, is if knowledge can be given for free, then yeah, I guess. I mean, I don't know. I know it's specific to the chess case, but interesting question, Darkslide. Anyways, let's keep going. This is the Kasparov game. D4, knight f6, knight f3, and d6, and basically, this situation. I mean, I just think that if you have a system that's built to support something that's inefficient, that seems incorrect to me. If something can if the tuition model system works to support the teachers and not the students, that seems wrong. But yeah, I think we should move on from this topic. I've given my opinions. I hope I was articulate. And I'm really trying to make it so that this knowledge is free and available to everyone. Anyways, this is King's Indian Defense, and this I think is pretty. I mean, basically, this is an early break with e5, castles, knight c6, knight e7, And then you know, f7 moving to f5. I think this basically yeah, this is an old Gary Kasparov game. Great demonstration of King's Indian defense, and I think basically you know, Black can basically move his move his attack forwards on the king side. Knight f6, c5, knight g6, pawn takes d6, pawn takes d6. Pressure from the rook on c1, but basically white doesn't get sufficient counterplay here. I'm thinking h5, g4, and then pressure being placed on the king side. A4, bishop f8, a5, bishop d7, and then here, you know, basically this is basically pretty strong for Black. This d6 is not going to fall, even though it's the weakest point in Black's position. H5, g4, and I basically think that you know, Black is going to be you know, moving forward. Yeah, g4 looks good, h5 looks good. I think Kasparov's going to play this you know, in an extremely efficient way, as he always does. But yeah, you know, I guess it's a very pretty game. So since I got distracted, and I apologize for that. I'm just looking at this. Yeah, I'm just looking at this position. I mean, even here, I think Black has great tactical or great practical compensation. Things like h5, g5, g4 move things forward, and you know, that I think that basically that's going to be really effective and in moving you know, in basically cementing this attack. White's attack looks underdeveloped. I mean, you know, I think there might be some chances with b4, c5, b6. And then eventually, you know, this attack will, you know, this attack will not be as quick as Kasparov's attack, obviously, since we know that Kasparov won this game. But this is some pretty strong play. Black ends up getting 2 pieces for that rook. It was a misstep, I think, to be playing to play knight takes a8 immediately. I think pawn takes g3, pawn takes g3, bishop takes g3 is a better way to go. Here, knight takes a8, and then knight a5 I thought was maybe a little bit imprecise. I think g takes f2 might be slightly better. But again, like, I'm basically basing that judgment off of the engine's moves, and you know, these players are so strong that it's one of the rare cases where trusting the engine versus trusting the player is sort of an unclear benefit for me. Pawn takes, rook takes, knight g3, queen takes, and basically here, I think, yeah, knight a1 or knight h1 is an awesome tactical move here. The rook is pinned on f2, and then on the king takes knight, queen takes f2. So, you know, like many Kasparov games, really cool tactic, backing up, actually ending this game. You know, this is a really cool tactic, actually. It's kind of amazing how you know, these high-level grandmasters have the position, or basically have the you know, the ability to use all of the board. It's like, who would even think to play knight h1 here? It's really a cool idea and very strong. So I don't know about that, Kiro. It depends. If you'd like to organize them, definitely yes. Yeah, no, I think that's right, Tarash. I think you know, good tactical study, good tactical play is a very good way to improve sub-expert level, sub-master level. Like, you know, it makes everything hold together better. This is a great tactic, knight h1, winning that f2 rook. Very, very pretty thing. Yeah, if you'd like. I only have so much time, to be completely honest. But yeah, if you guys want to get something organized, that sounds like an awesome idea. I'm super happy to work with the stream. Yeah, I guess I don't feel strongly about that one, Kiro. Yeah, sure, go ahead. If you want to organize it on Lichess or whatever, yeah, if you want. I mean, you know, my thought is to stream entirely on chess.com, but you're welcome to stream it wherever you like, or you're welcome to host the tournament wherever you like. Works fine for me. Yeah. So anyways, This opening is this opening is good. I just want to play through this one more time. Hey, sorry Julio. Your game is the first one, but we got stuck on this analysis for a bit. That's good. That's good, Tarash. Good to hear. I think I'd probably just do commentary. I just have a lot of, to be honest, I'm very busy. I stream for 21 hours a week and love doing it. Definitely planning to continue to stream for 21 or 20, somewhere between 21 and 25 hours a week. But I'm very busy. I have a lot of, I'm taking 2 part-time classes and have my own non-chess business that I'm doing work with. So yeah, I'm pretty busy, but I'm super happy to comment the games if you're interested in setting that up, Kira. Absolutely. Anyways, this is looking pretty good for black. Basically advancing on the king side is good. Let's pause like a few moves in. I just want to show a little bit more theory here. E5 is I think the most popular move by a good margin. There's a few divergences here. Castles, bishop to E3, D5. And d takes e5. I think all of these are pretty good for white. Castles, knight c6, d5, knight e7, knight e1. I think black's basically in a good place here. Black did a maneuvering knight to d7, which I think is not the most modern one now. When I've seen Nakamura play this game, he tends to play knight e8 instead. Knight e8 as opposed to knight d7. But they both lead to the same general concept, which is f5's coming, and then probably f4 after that. Basically starting the kingside attack on the basically starting the attack on the kingside. So yeah, so knight d7 versus knight e8. Knight d7 here, bishop e3, f5, f3, f4. Basically, black has all the space on the king side. I'm even sort of impressed that the g5 is such a, it's like a 98% choice here. That's pretty impressive. A4, but basically just advancing on this king side. A5, h5, knight b5, knight f6, and now basically black's looking, black's looking fine. I think the eval shifted somewhat. But yeah, there's a bunch of options. But in like most King's Indian defense theory, the main position is going to revolve around advancing aggressively on the king side, and white correspondingly trying to create counterplay on the queen side. Both sides are trying to do this as quickly as possible, and great grandmasters can do it ridiculously efficiently. They usually, the players usually don't spend too many moves on the side on which they're getting attacked. They're trying to play as few defensive moves as possible because they're trying to achieve their, white's trying to achieve counterplay on the queen side and black's trying to cement this king side attack. But overall, I think this is pretty good. It's a pretty good opening. It's a very simple opening to play from a conceptual perspective because you know that black is going to be breaking with e5 and then starting a strong attack on the queen side, or start strong attack on the king side, and white's going to have an attack on the queen side. So very easy from a conceptual perspective. It really comes down to efficiency of execution. Knight d7 versus knight e8 is a key forking point for black, and there's a few forks for white. Yeah. I mean, I think the history behind that is that Kramnik had a bunch of good wins against it, and then it became less popular. But attacking players still play it as black sometimes, especially in quicker games. Nakamura had a great win out of it, and we showed that on a stream previously. It's people move that type of thing, but yeah, in general, this is it's interesting. It's very interesting the way that this has has sort of evolved. Most of the history behind opening theory has evolved I mean, particularly memorable wins or losses out of an opening will definitely steer things in that direction. And then, lower level lower level strong masters like IMs will come up with new novelties, and things just keep moving forward. It's great. Anyways, on to the next game. This is Julio's game. I wanted to get onto that. Sorry to take so long with that one, but the question, you guys asked some very interesting questions that I wanted to address in a thoughtful way. So yeah, let's go. Cool. So this is Julio plays this game as black. As white, Julio sent a few games out of the Smith-Morra Gambit, and I am interested in seeing the Petrov. So I'm interested in seeing the Petrov, seeing what Julio plays as black. I really appreciate the games that Julio sent. Julio has sent a bunch of games, which you all should feel free to do. It's actually really helpful when I'm thinking about it because I sort of know. The more games you send, the more of your repertoire I'll sort of know associated with you personally, and that is helpful. So yeah, here this game basically simplifies really quickly. I think it's sort of this all makes sense. I'm not sure this Petrov. I think this is sort of tricky too. I think knight c6 is not the general response to the Petrov. The main lines for Petrov is no, I don't think the queen. I don't think the queen's trade was particularly bad. Yeah, this Stafford Gambit. I'm not super familiar with this one, to be honest. I would look at yeah, no, for sure. I know that this has established theory. But the moves that I'm familiar with out of the Petrov are d6 and knight takes e4 and usually d6. There may be ways to play this, but I guess I would just, it doesn't look particularly, wow, that's, yeah, I'm not so, okay. Alright, interesting, Tarash. Interesting. Yeah, I mean, I guess I'm not super familiar with this theory, to be honest. But I'm thinking knight to c6. Yeah, knight to c6 is tricky. I mean, it's a full pawn sacrifice, right? And a sacrifice of a central pawn in black's position, and it gets the d pawn off of the d file. So yeah, I guess I would say Julio. I mean, I don't want to be too, I don't know this opening. I can point towards the eval and say that it's, 1.5 points is more than white can get, I think, or white should be getting from black here. Knight takes c6, d takes c6, and white's up about a pawn and a half. This I think is tricky. But anyways, the moves that I would look at here, I would go with d6 here. I think d6 is probably the best play. d6, knight f3, knight takes e4, d4, d5, and here you have basically a mainline Petrov. Most common. I'm just gonna play the main lines here. There's a fork here. Knight c6 is one. Bishop e7 is one, and bishop to d6 is one. But yeah, I mean, in terms of this, I think these moves may be more productive. Knight to c6 probably. You can allow bishop takes e4. I mean, white's trading off his good squared bishop for this knight. But bishop e7, c4, knight b4, bishop e2. And then you basically have some choices. You can play castles, or you can play bishop to e6, or you can play d takes c4. But all are sort of good. This basically, this plays out pretty well for black, I think. This is a very playable line for black. White still has the initiative, but Solid play in the main line Petrov. I think I just don't know this Stafford opening to be completely honest. This is not interesting. Yeah, no, I mean that's actually really interesting to know in terms of why it would be getting more popular. But I'm not a yeah. It doesn't make a lot. It doesn't seem that good to me. I strongly recommend to everyone, when they're assessing opening lines, I would at least use the computer for guidance, like use evals, and if things move against you sharply in the first 8 moves, and the opening theory, does not really view that, basically that opening isn't played. I would definitely like sort of view that with skepticism. Interesting. That's actually really interesting, Mario PB. Cool. Do you want me to take a look at that game, Ahmet? I can look at that game, Ahmet, if you'd like. I can put that for May 9th at 6:05 p.m. Eastern. But yeah, I guess that's what I would say in terms of yeah, no, of course, no. Thank you very much for sending it, Random, and yeah, please, always, we were talking about expanding the stream. If anyone wants to bring on their friends' games, or if anyone wants to tell their friends that free analysis is being done here, definitely, let. I encourage you to do that. Like that, that is a super cool thing to do, and free lessons here. Please, if you're I'm not a good self-promoter, but if anyone's has a good way to spread the word, I'm super appreciative of that. Yeah. So anyways, I think that this opening is probably, I think this opening just isn't particularly good. Bullet maybe. I assume that there's strong tactics here, but I don't particularly know them. I mean, I don't want to. I just want to view this objectively. I think what might be most helpful is taking a look at the analysis of the opening, like basically looking at the engine analysis and assessing whether the eval that coming from a gambit is okay with you. Like if you're okay basically with the 1.6 pawn eval, it's definitely that's completely fine, but it's a good thing to know about. Here I would also use what's most popular as guidance. There are definitely 10% lines that are an improvement over 90% lines, but I would use these tools, basically doing exactly what I'm doing, as guidance in terms of your analysis. So things like, if you're seeing d6 at plus 0.6 and knight c6 as plus 1.7, it's okay to play things that are objectively less good sometimes in an opening, but I would definitely pay attention to the difference in these evals, and also use the most frequently played moves as guidance. That's what I would say on this topic. So yeah, I mean, it's just tricky. If you play an opening that gives a lead of 1.5 pawns, that basically means you're going to need to outplay your opponent by 1.5 pawns for the rest of the game. We can probably play through here, and my guess would be that you're actually doing great. I mean, you've basically narrowed that gap by half a pawn, and then I think you may narrow it even further. But it's difficult to play when your eval is that rough after the first 5 moves. It's just tough to continue a game, continue games on like that. I mean, here, look, let's take this to move 17. You've basically played the whole game, and you've been pretty close to equality, but this opening basically it's just really tricky to when you're starting from behind by so much from an objective perspective. B6 is probably the best here. I think B6. Um, uh, Interesting. Yeah, we can take a look at. I'm curious about the Stafford Gambit's win rate as well. Yeah, let's look at this. I mean, not particularly on this line, to be honest. And also, I would just choose. I think win rate is probably not the most the best indicator. This 71%, this 71% win rate is pretty good for white. So it's sort of consistent with what I'm saying, but got it. Yeah, I got you, Sleepy Bear. But yeah, I think the main thing is that I would not I would pay more attention to what's the most common. If something is common, I'm not saying that it's good, but it is an indication that masters are playing it, and that's usually relatively good guidance that it's at least within the safe realm. So the reason that the main lines are the main lines is because they're objectively close the best or close to the best for both sides. So I would definitely use the popularity of an opening played in an opening database to have some guidance there. Yeah, I mean, when you have a rough eval from the start, avoiding trading probably is a good idea. But yeah, I think probably here pawn takes g4 is slightly better than queen h4. We can go over that. It's rough because at move 5, white had a 1.6 pawn advantage, and at move 9, now white has a 0.75 advantage. I am inclined to agree with you, Tarash. I think you're making a very valid point here. Anyways, yeah, I think Julio, this is basically I would steer you away from this gambit. Here's what I would say, Julio. If you're interested in taking a look at your I don't know if you're interested in taking a look at your opening repertoire, but here, I guess I would make the recommendation that yes, I would definitely recommend looking at what masters play. What IMs and GMs play in very well publicized tournaments. Those are the openings that I think are the most the best. Yeah, no, I think I would steer you away from this Julio. I don't want to be too rough on I don't want to be too rough on gambit openings. I think gambit openings are basically they can be good surprise weapons, and I don't want to come down too hard on them, but I think in terms of learning how to play better chess, you probably want to play the things that are objectively the best. That would be my recommendation here. And yeah, that's my thinking on this topic. So see if this works for you. But if it's not working, then you can do h takes g4, queen h4. This is I think a slight improvement here is h takes g4, queen g4. But I would want to steer you a bit towards more lines. When you see this breakdown of opening theory, there's usually a reasonably good reason why it's this case. This is basically knight c6 is played 1 in 1,000 times. Yeah, totally. Yeah, and always too, lecture course. If you, after half an hour from now. Okay, sure. Yeah, I can do it at the end. I'll do it last. I'll do that one last, Electric. I'm a little bit behind on my schedule today, but yeah, absolutely. I'll do it at the end of the I'll do it at the end of the stream. So yeah, knight takes e5. Knight c6 is a 1 in 1,000 move at master level. There's a reason why masters play the things that they do. Yeah, thank you very much for the follow, Coder. I appreciate it. Yeah, so anyways, d6 I think is an improvement over over knight c6. Knight f3, knight takes, d4, knight d5. This is what the mainline Petrov looks like. You know, this position is fine for black. Everything's good. And here, you know, bishop d3, knight c6, castles, bishop e7, c4, knight to b4, and now basically black has a pretty good position. You know, not better, but certainly a stable opening position. Petrov's is a fine opening. Black can play it comfortably, and you know, I think here black's in a pretty solid place. It's just a, you know, a game where you're playing chess from move 10. In terms of awesome, cool, yeah, no problem, Julio. Thank you very much for that. Yeah, and if you yeah, definitely interested in maybe I'll stop by your stream at some point, Julio. Thank you very much for joining and for contributing material to this one. So yeah, so knight c6, pawn takes, and I think, you know, black's gonna be playing this. So yeah, queen trades, and you know, I don't really think black's done anything, you know, too terrible in terms of actually playing the game. I think from an objective standpoint, black has actually narrowed the gap slightly from that opening. Now black is, you know, the material's about equal, but you know, I guess equal. Black's down a pawn. Black's down the same pawn that he was from the opening. So from a material perspective, it's traded off equally. Black can castle queenside, and h4 can be played. But anyways, by this point, I think white gets too much play on the yeah, too much play on the king side, and is going to be able to advance that pawn. Anyways, things I would think about just in terms of play, you know, I do think it's worthwhile to revisit this opening. This eval is very rough for black. In terms of improvement, I think ideas. I think not trading is probably better. You know, I guess I would appeal to sort of the main, I would basically just say, you know, go with the standard, you know, go with the standard thinking here. Like, you know, you're down a pawn, you've played this gambit, so, you know, when you're down a pawn in any other situation, you would avoid trades, and you would want to trade as the side that's up a pawn. So I think you can apply that here. In this gambit, you've sacrificed a pawn, and basically, because you've sacrificed this pawn, be sure to, you know, because you sacrificed this pawn, be sure that, you know, I would lean towards trading further. You're down material, so don't trade off. Is still true here, as true as it would be in any other middle game. So I think that's how you could have improved this. You know, the pieces came off the board quickly. You know, white's trying to trade off with moves like bishop e3. Maybe you could respond. I mean, bishop takes e3 is probably fine, but being so willing to trade off the pieces as black here is probably bad, just because of the, you know, because you're down material. You know, so if you can do whatever you can do to start an attack in this position, is probably your best strategy here. Queen to d6, maybe queen to d6 to queen to b4, something like that. But anyways, it looks pretty good for black, and you know, or it looks pretty good for white, and I think a better opening for black, or at least a more calm opening for black, would be in like the mainline Petrov. Here, d6, knight f3, and really just kind of look at the most commonly played openings. If they're played in 90% of master games, they're probably fine. Not saying that you should always go with tradition, but this it's usually a sign that an opening played frequently at high level master games is usually a pretty good sign for the soundness of that opening. Anyways, cool. Yeah, thank you very much for sending it, Julio. I would take a look at the, some of the more conservative ways that you can play the Petrovs. That's very interesting about the popularity of this opening right now, and I didn't know anything about that. But yeah, I would take a look at that. Yeah, I would take a look at that opening, and then if you're going to play that opening, which if it's fun for you to play it that way, then it's fun for you to play it that way, and I would recommend you play chess in the way that's the most fun for you. This with this opening, you basically you're playing from behind material, so you don't want to be trading in the way that the trading went in this game. You want to try to avoid trades and start a general attack. But yeah, thank you very much for sending it, Julio, and very interesting game. Cool. On to the next one. Okay, so here's Matt Yop's game. Matt Yop sent, I think, one game is white and one game is black, which is totally cool. Everybody feel free to send as many games as you'd like. Yeah, no, thank you very much, Julio. I really appreciate you sending the games over, and yeah, please keep doing that. It's great. I can plan ahead a little bit better with, when there's, I can plan ahead better when I have the games super far in advance, so... yeah, I really appreciate you being here, and I really appreciate you sending over the games. Thanks a lot for that. Cool. So this is a game played by Matt Yop as white. It's the Italian game, which I know extremely well. I like this opening. I think it's simple and solid, and I think that that's a good way to it's a good way to play at club level for sure. Knight e6 is unusual. I don't think I've seen too many. I mean, basically. D4 is an interesting gambit. I don't know this extremely well, but I would guess that it's probably going to have some similarities to the Scotch. So let's look at that. So say bishop c4, bishop c5. D4 is interesting. I mean, it's a gambit. Pawn takes d4. And it does look like a Scotch type position. So here, I think you're in. This looks like sort of a fried liver type line. Interesting. Okay. So yeah. Here I play d3. I don't know too much about d4. If there's a way that you can solidly play d4, then by all means do it. I think basically the Italian game involves kind of launching a hard kingside attack. You want to play moves like h3, g4, knight to g5, with knight to g5 with d3 having been played. You hope for a castling of black on the king side. But those are the most frequent, kind of general concepts in the Italian game. Knight f6, d3, and then some bishop g5 pins can be an interesting component of this game. But overall, d4 seems like a pretty aggressive way to play this. I would go, I guess, with d3. D3 is the variation I play. I think it's called, pianissimo version. This is really just solid for white. I guess I have a different approach to I have my own approach to chess. My approach to chess is basically make your tactics extremely strong, make your positional understanding extremely strong, and then just create a position where you can outplay your opponent. This is the solid method of playing that I think is effective. There's a lot of kind of maneuver. I've talked to grandmasters, and grandmasters do talk about situations where they sort of maneuver, things into openings that they know. I wouldn't say that that's a bad idea if you're extremely familiar with some opening. then definitely go with it. That can be a good way to play, but just as an overarching perspective, and what I would recommend to people trying to improve out of club level is basically, get your tactics extremely strong, get your positional strategy extremely strong, find a few openings that work that are solid, just like solid conservative stuff. Be able to make sure that you're able to basically start a chess game. That's the key thing. Like, don't really play for traps. Don't really play for long positional novelties. You don't really, I just don't think that's the best way to learn how to play. I would just say focus on tactics, focus on good positional understanding, and then turn it into a game that's competitive, and you'll beat all your opponents. That's my, I don't know. I that may be kind of a quaint way to play chess. There's probably cooler things, but I just think being extremely solid and then coming up with positions that allow you to win out of very solid positions are the way to go. That's my recommendation. So anyways, I lean towards d3. d4 looks like the type of thing that could be extremely dangerous, could provide like quick wins. But at the end of the day, I'm going to guess that this is probably not, the best. This doesn't lead to the best eval for white. I think moves like d3, knight c3, c3, castles, those types of things, I think. I think those will provide a better opportunity for white to win based on the strategy that I've described. Just solid play, learn how to basically lead towards tactics and positional play. And be good at those two things. That's the idea. Okay, here castles h3, h6. Yeah, this is like, see, this is the type of position that I'm kind of going for in the Italian game. I don't necessarily castle kingside as white. Sometimes I delay the castling and play like knight c4, knight e3, bishop d2, queen c2. And then castle queenside, and then start launching an attack with g4, h4. That's the theory that I know the best is the Italian game. And Italian game is an opening that I do know very well. White's just, in this line, white's just going to kind of maneuver. Knight f1's commonly played in the Italian game with the idea of, potentially knight g3 after knight f4. Potentially knight h2, that can also happen. But knight g3 after knight h4, like I was saying, g6, d4, h5, bishop c2. And just basically, the pieces are kind of naturally aligned towards the king side. You can launch a king side attack, and that's the recommendation that I would make on this. I would steer towards a more normal opening. It's kind of funny, like, I guess I find myself in the position where I'm sort of recommending playing boring openings. Just boring and solid, and then outplay your opponents. But that's sort of where this line of thinking draws me. Anyways, this is interesting. D4 is a knight D4 is an idea. Maybe C3. I don't know exactly what you're supposed to do here, to be honest. The most common move here is pawn takes D4. This makes it a little bit more recognizable as a Scotch position to me. You can sort of turn this into like some sort of Scotch gambit, the Haxor gambit, c3, and basically pawn takes c3 and knight takes c3. But yeah, this at least sort of transposes it into a position that I'm familiar with, and a position where you can sort of allow a chess game to start. Cool. Knight takes, pawn takes, bishop b4, bishop d2, bishop takes, knight takes. Good. Hey, welcome, Vert. Thank you very much for joining the stream. I've got you. Just to remind me, Vertwitch, are you XIPQAG2 from Reddit, or is that your Lichess username? Yeah, I think Haxo Gambit, at least sort of leads into something recognizable as a Scotch position. But yeah, this I think is pretty solid for white. Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, no, I just want to make sure. That's who I have it online for. Okay, cool. That's who I was curious about. Thank you very much for being here, Zipcag. We're going to get to your game next. Sorry to be slow and not remember super well whose usernames match with whose, but yours is next, XIP. Thank you very much for joining the stream. Sorry to confuse you guys. But yeah, So anyways, d4, I do not know this line. Pawn takes d4, looks like the main line. Haxo Gambit, Scotch Gambit. This is probably playable as some transposition of Scotch lines, but knight takes d4, and I do not know. This doesn't really resemble any openings that I'm familiar with. Knight takes e5 looks interesting. b4 looks pretty interesting, actually. Sort of curious about b4. b4, bishop takes b4, c3, and that looks pretty good. The knight would take, but then the queen would take and have this threat on f7. So b4 looks like an interesting idea. Knight g5, okay. Knight to h6, sure. Yeah, and it looks like black's playing this pretty solidly. Okay, cool. All right, interesting. Here, knight takes d4. Okay, an aggressive response to d4 and not the main line, which is pawn takes d4. Here, knight takes d4. b4, forking the threatening to fork the bishop and knight looks good. Bishop e3 is a straightforward developing move. This also looks like a pretty good idea. c3 is probably fine, but does block the natural developing square for this knight on c3. And then knight takes f3, queen takes f3, and basically white's sort of aggressively attacking on this f7 pawn. Interesting. Cool. So yeah, here I guess I don't want to get hung up on these openings much more, but d4 is a pretty unusual gambit. If you know it super well, if you know that the Haxo Gambit as if you know the Haxo Gambit as white, then maybe it's playable. But I would just go. I think the Italian game's a great opening, very solid, good idea to be playing. d3, knight c3, bishop g5, and basically no major tactical complexities here. b3, bishop d7, bishop b2, and yeah, white's playing a kind of a normal looking game. Similar to the previous gambits, this d4 pawn or this d4 gambit does give up material almost immediately. You can retake with knight takes e5, which looks sort of risky. I'm pretty sure black's going to have an aggressive tactical response to this, like queen e7. Okay, sure. But knight to g5, knight e6, knight takes, and then queen takes. I guess this looks okay, in terms of a general strategy idea. I'm not sure I would trade the queen off. I mean, basically, I again would lean on that principle, like, if you're down material, you probably shouldn't be trading off major pieces. Here you could play like queen g4, and then have an attack on g7, then castle maybe. But queen g4, and then you're doing at least the purpose of the gambit. I mean, the purpose of a gambit is to basically get a quick win based off of a sacrifice of material. Hopefully the gambit is sound and that's actually something that someone can do. But yeah, queen g4 looks solid, and I think even though there is a positional gain from queen takes d8, king takes d8. I would still play a non-trading move since you're down material and you want to adhere to fundamental principles. So here, you've traded off the queen, okay, so this, but the same idea still holds. I mean, you're still down a pawn here, so I wouldn't be trading. Castling queenside, king e7, f3, bishop to f2, a4, bishop c5, and basically, white's, I think, white's basically trying to make the best of this I think basically White's trying to do the best that he can uh, off of this issue. So, or basically off of this issue, this pawn disadvantage. Here, pawn takes, bishop e2, and yeah, it's again a position that's tricky. Hey, thank you very much, Big, for thank you for following and thank you for being here. So yeah, so I think this, yeah, it was just tricky. You've played an opening gambit, so you know that you're gonna have to get a big attack out of an opening gambit to justify it. But unfortunately, the sort of trading in this opening leads Black to having an advantage. I don't think there's really any huge errors from a tactical perspective for White. I think White played a reasonably fine game. Black played very accurately against this gambit, but yeah, I mean, I think basically, you have a gambit that's giving up a central pawn in the opening, and then so that's the first thing I would wonder about. Basically, it's not a gambit that I'm even familiar with, to be completely honest. And then after that, pieces are traded off too quickly, given that it's a gambit. A gambit means you shouldn't be trading off pieces. That's broadly true. Basically, gambit trading off pieces can lead to a positional basically a positional disadvantage, and basically you're in a standard fundamental situation. You're down material, don't want to trade off pieces. If you trade off pieces, that's a problem, and you're basically decreasing the number of opportunities you'll have to equalize on your material sacrifice. So that's where I would steer this away, and it's a pretty broad concept. I guess the biggest demonstration of this would be playing Queen G4 as opposed to Queen takes D8. Queen G4 I think is just better. Queen E2 is what the engine recommends. Queen G4 at least turns it into an attack, which goes thematically with the concept of the gambit that you've played. Also sort of wondering about Queen H5 and threats you might be able to get against E5, but it's a gambit. You have an attacking position, start attacking. That's my suggestion there. Also, yeah, so that queen trade is probably the biggest example of this. This bishop takes is probably also not the best idea, but you've gambited, so you have an attacking position. Don't trade off pieces to diminish your attack. Thank you very much for sending the game, Matt Yop. Interesting idea. I haven't seen this. I have never seen this opening, to be honest. But very interesting idea, and my recommendation is, if you're going to play the gambit, leave the pieces on the board so you have things to attack with. Cool. Awesome. Next game is from Zipcag, and we will take a look at that. It's a French defense game. Sorry about this, it's just taking me a minute. Funny, I'm not super good with these studies. If it's a study on Lee chess, this takes me a minute. Okay, I guess I can just sort of play it out. Let's just take it on the board. This works. Okay, cool. So look at the analysis, and then the game goes like this. It's Zipcag is playing black, I believe. Or sorry, no, black. Zipcag is playing white. It goes E4, E6, D4, d5, e takes, so French exchange, knight f3, c6, c4, bishop to g4. C takes, queen takes, knight c3, bishop to b4. Okay, so basically this is interesting. This is a very very interesting line of the French defense. Sure, yeah, or I think I've got it, Zipcac. Sorry about that. I should have probably gotten the full game copied out first. That's my bad, Zipcac. But I definitely do want to go through this, so we'll take a look. I'm just gonna play through it quickly, just since I don't know the game and just need to recopy it out onto chess.com. Okay. Yeah, so this is interesting. I mean, it's a French defense. This is a fairly complicated line of the French exchange. I guess I'm sort of, basically French exchange is an extremely drawish opening. It's got one of the, the most solid reputations for being a drawish opening. And basically here, with this, in this type of situation, how do you how basically do you try to come up with a winning attack out of a situation that's very likely to be drawn? I'm sort of curious. I'd like to see the write-ups of the winning percentages out of the French exchange, like what might be winning. Monte Carlo variation, which basically is French exchange followed by c4, is probably is the most aggressive way that White challenges the center. I'd be curious to see how it sort of lines up as in terms of overall winning percentage. So here. This makes sense. I mean, White's idea of getting this bishop pair versus this knight pair, I think, will be able to provide some, some compensation. I think a bishop pair versus a knight pair in an exchange French, which actually is a pretty open game, as opposed to the normal French, which is a relatively closed game. That should be something that will solidify into a material advantage. Here's where it comes, the material advantage. Pawn takes b5, bishop takes b5. Interesting. Yeah, just want to make sure that I transposed it correctly. Rook d8. d7. Rook e8. Here, rook takes, knight takes, but yeah, this looks great. I mean, you're simplifying the position, into an increasingly open position with both the material advantage and two bishops against two knights. I think overall this is this is just a good idea. Awesome. Here, okay, Black's making a good play to either trade off the bishop pair or win this pawn. I think there's probably no tactical way to do this. Probably playing bishop takes f6 and keeping the bishop to the knight, but keeping the pawn advantage is the best idea. Maybe. Just continuing to look at this, though. Bishop takes, knight takes, king f1, f8, king e2. But yeah, here, I mean, now this is a difficult endgame to win. I see the big positive evals. Thanks, Sipcac. I caught it eventually. But yeah, thanks very much for helping out with this. It's really my fault. I should have exported it as a PGN. I forget that Lichess has a different thing for studies versus regular notation. Yeah. So here, just finishing this out. Basically, I think basically this this should be a win, but it's sort of going to require some tricky maneuvering. I don't really know how to do this. I think probably the best strategy is going to be to play King E3 and then advance towards the kingside pawns, while also using the E pawn as something to divert from the king on E8. But it's tricky. Let's see. I guess white could also focus attention on this A7 pawn and try to make the two pass pawns the B pawn or the D pawn. I'll slow it down on our next. We'll do a couple runs through this and I'll slow it down more. But the endgame strategy is actually really interesting here. Coming up with a plan that's either move the king towards the king side or move the king towards the queen side. It's definitely a question that would require some analysis. King c7, so white's basically solidified the. I think basically, I feel like King c7 was a pretty bad blunder here. It might have been an inevitable win for white either way, but I feel like giving up the. I guess it doesn't matter. I feel like black moving backwards against white's opposition should definitely come after h5. But I guess keeping that tempo in reserve for black has some value too. I guess it just doesn't matter. King c7, king c4, or h5, king c4, and then the king's forced to move back anyways. So I guess there it's basically fine. The black didn't have much of an improvement there. Okay, cool. All right, so there's the full game. Got to slow it down a little bit. Hey, no problem. Thank you very much for joining the stream, Aphelion. Yeah, I really appreciate you being here, and yeah, whenever you're here, it's always appreciated. But yeah, so let's look at this. E4, E6, French exchange variation. C4 is challenging. Basically, the immediate C4 is the Monte Carlo variation. I've played this a few times against strong players. I have a few good wins over masters with it. It's actually pretty interesting. It's a pretty drawn. It's basically a pretty drawn opening, which allows you to sort of play as aggressively as you want, right? If the structure is designed to be drawn, or if it's a structure that's extremely likely to be drawn, you can just sort of push it very aggressively from a tactical perspective and hope that your opponent makes errors. That can actually be a strategy that really works well. Yeah, so see here, C4 is a line that I'm more familiar with. The delayed C4, I'm sure, is also fine. I'm sure it has a lot of similarities. I mean, basically, this could have transposed from the same idea. Bishop G4, pawn takes, queen takes, and basically, I think things are pretty good for white here. It's still drawish. I mean, white's doing what he can to try to make this more difficult position for black to draw. Maybe h3 is an idea, maybe rook b1. Probably rook b1 is a good idea just from a positional perspective. It makes the most aggressive challenges towards, basically improves the rook and then makes aggressive challenges towards winning this position. But I like rook b1 here. Queen b3, pawn takes, rook e8. Cool. If there was a way to not let this, not let this doubling of the, yeah, so I think this is an error. I think I would have played bishop to d1 here. I don't think this bishop is doing too much on this diagonal, but I do think that it's a pretty tangible advantage for black to take on f3 and cause doubled pawns here. This double pawns actually has some advantage in the sense that it lets this d4 pawn be defended, but yeah, I think basically here bishop to d1 offers an improvement. This way, these pawns don't have to get doubled and isolated. If you get double and isolate the pawns, then I think white has some difficulty. Knight e4 maybe, but yeah, I think overall here bishop d1 and things are pretty much okay for white. White doesn't have to make any positional compromises. On the other hand, another benefit of allowing pawn takes f3 is that you get this bishop pair versus the knight pair. That's why the engine doesn't really differentiate too much between these two, but I think actually that is a reasonable advantage. I would still play bishop d1 just out of principle here. Like this yeah, no, of course, guys. No, thank you very much for all being here. I really appreciate it, and I think it's interesting. Yeah, so bishop d1. I agree. No, I agree. And you make a really good point, Zipcag. I think the point here is that basically the bishop pair is worth like a significant amount of value versus the knight pair. The engine doesn't evaluate these very differently. Rook e1, bishop takes, pawn takes. This is basically fine for white as well because of the value of the bishop pair. Out of intuition, I would play bishop d1, but you can definitely make the argument for rook e1 and then and getting the doubled and accepting those doubled pawns as compensation for the bishop pair. Anyways, idea. And basically, white gets a great position out of this. This is where my thing appears to end, right? Or no, sorry. No, I did it with. I go into the other one here. It was rook e8, rook takes, knight takes, and yeah, white's basically using this bishop pawn or bishop pair really advantageously here. This looks pretty ugly for black actually. I think black will start moving his king up, like king c4, bishop c6, something like that. But overall, I think white's got a pretty good idea here. Knight df6, and basically, trading off into a pawn endgame, I think was a really good idea. Basically at any point here, really, white has a material advantage. So if white can trade off, it's kind of a difficult question because the bishops are both better than the knights, right? Given that it's an endgame position, but trading off favors white here in general. This position where you're up a pawn, it's a little bit hard to maneuver because these pawns aren't worth quite these set of 3 pawns isn't worth quite as much as this set of 3 pawns. But I think white should still be able to comfortably win in a king versus pawn endgame here. You'd have to calculate it and you have to be careful, but yeah, no, I mean, just from the fundamental perspective, Zipcag, general game, like, it's just a fundamental concept. You have 5 pawns, the other guy has 4 pawns, so you might as well just trade off. Or you might as well just trade off as being the side with the material advantage. So here, yeah, I mean, great execution. This is really solid. Yeah, I think basically white is good here. Yeah, I mean, I think white is good from the point that the pieces come off the board, to be completely honest. Black's counterplay goes down a lot after bishop takes d6. And the eval shows it. I mean, it basically goes from a complicated 1.5 up to pretty uncomplicated 7 points up. So trading the pieces off was really good for you. Yeah, good question. And, I really appreciate, awesome. Ask me as many questions as you have, Zipcag, because it's super helpful in guiding, the analysis. And thank you for being here. So yeah, what do I think about b3? Here, okay, so there's no real material difference, right? With queen to b3, I think that makes sense. I think basically it does fix you know, on queen takes b3, queen pawn takes b3. I think that trade can only really be good for white. You know, it is valuable to have this this rook attacking this b7 pawn, but having the rook on the open a file is solid too. It fixes your pawn structure. So you know, I would say it's valuable in the sense that it you know, it fixes the pawn structure. I see that it's not the engine's preferred choice here, but I think it's fine. This is not a move that I would think is you know, a big problem for you know, is creates any problems for white. Fixing the pawn structure at the cost of you know, some attacking chances, I don't see any problem with that. Let's just see in terms of what they were looking at. They were looking at c4. Okay. No, I think queen b3 is fine. That's not one of the moves that I would really fault here. I think that makes intuitive sense. You fix the pawn structure, you attack the pawn on b7. Yeah, no, and that makes complete sense to me too. That's how I would have played from a fundamental perspective. That makes sense. A pawn, you know, good pawn structure is worth a lot. So so queen takes b3, pawn takes b3, and I like you know, I like white's position. Your main advantages here are going to be to do with basically the strength of hey, thank you very much for the follow, Marshall. Appreciate it. Pawn takes b3, rook e8, rook e1, and here I think you know, white's just good. He's got the bishop pair going up against the knights, and I think yeah, this is good for white. Bishop takes, and I think basically you know, white's pretty solid going into this endgame. All the trades will be helpful. So rook e8 doesn't really make sense. I'm thinking about things that you know, I could have improved in white's game here. I think this all makes sense. It's a very drawish opening, and here yeah, queen b3 is one of the moves that the engine sort of doesn't like, but makes intuitive sense to me, so it's fine. Biggest improvement I see so far is bishop d1. This one, you know, isn't even an improvement either from an engine perspective, but it's definitely something I would have played. I think from a conceptual perspective, it offers kind of a much simpler way of just securing an advantage here. You know, with this idea, c4, bishop e3, white's in a pretty good place, I think. This, you know, this getting that bishop pair versus the knights is a very complicated way to trade off these pieces. Rook to e1, bishop takes, pawn takes, and you know, this is black's probably closest point in the game. The advantage here is based off of the bishop pair, but yeah, here white's just sort of, you know, white's basically at an eval advantage off of that bishop pair. But I guess I just would have played bishop d1. The doubling of the pawns just seems like a counter positional move. I understand that materially it leads to you getting the bishop pair, but I probably just wouldn't have allowed it. I think bishop d1, even if that's not what the engine is saying, is the most intuitive play here. So I would think about that move, give that move you know, an appropriate longer analysis. Bishop b7. Okay. I guess that this bishop is sort of needed. I guess really, you know, I understand the concept of moving this bishop onto the fianchetto, and I think there is valuable things that can come from c4 and d5, but I would play bishop to d2 here. I think bishop to d2 is you know, is pretty good for white. You know, bishop to d2 holds this f4 square. This is a good outpost for this knight. If the bishop is away from this f4 square, then this knight can take it, you know, with you know, basically get posted there and become a problem for white. You know, a knight on this square controls a bunch of different squares. And that that basically is gonna play out pretty well for Black in this situation. It makes the most of his knight, versus the bishop. But this is the way to maximize the mobility for the knight is to get it onto f4 and have threats on d3, e2, g2, and h3. I think that's an improvement for that knight. So I would play bishop to d2. This is the idea that I have in mind. But I think this whole develops the bishop to a slightly better square, and holds a square that's more relevant. Getting the bishop on the fianchetto could potentially lead to good mobility, but to be honest, this bishop on c1 already has pretty good mobility on this diagonal. I think knight f4 is sort of the best way that Black can improve this knight. Another thing is bishop d2 and knight d5 and c4, and all the squares are covered for White. I think here this knight has to do something, but it doesn't have any of the good options available. Bishop b2 leads to a more complicated. It leads to basically Black being able to develop one of these outposts. Bishop to d2, knight to d5, c4. And, where does the knight... The knight doesn't have a great option or a great place to go. Here... Sort of, Black didn't really capitalize. That knight f4 outpost, I think, could have been really valuable. I'm surprised b5 was best. I'm surprised that knight f4 wasn't played here, to be honest. I guess bishop e4 is pretty powerful, but anyways, this sort of evolves. But yeah, from this point, I think bishop b2 is probably another move where I think that keeping it on the d2 pawn, or keeping it on the d2 diagonal actually provides as good mobility and also holds all the necessary pieces. But yeah, I think here generally White's in a solid place. No issues after this all trades off. Rook e8. And White's good stuff. Okay, improvements for White. I think all of this makes sense. Queen b3, which is faulted by the engine, seems like something that isn't, Queen b3 may not be as pressing as c4, but it makes intuitive sense to fix the pawn structure to me. That isn't something to look at because the engine determines that it's, equalizing, heads more towards the equalizing direction for White. But overall, not as strong. Or Queen b3 is technically not as strong, but it makes a lot of intuitive sense to me. It's probably what I would have played. And then I would have played bishop to d1 here. Another one where I'm sort of at odds with the engine, but this bishop to d1 prevents the pawns from getting doubled. Doubling the pawns at the cost of Black's bishop is why bishop d1 is not given a huge eval difference. But I wouldn't trade down here, I wouldn't double the pawns here in a situation where you're likely to play trade down. Yeah, well, we can see now. Here's your accuracies. White played a pretty good game, which is sort of why I'm struggling to come up with improvements. But this is a pretty accurate game, 94%. Yeah, it was a well played game for sure. Yeah, so good well played game. So nicely done with that. And rook e1, pawn takes. Bishop d2 I would propose as a potential improvement here. It controls more important squares. Bishop b2 is the fianchetto, but it takes a few moves before White can realize this fianchetto anyways. And bishop to d2, and you're in a pretty good place holding f4 and b4. So I think that's an improvement. And then other than that, those are two pretty trivial things. I mean, my takeaways from this game are, look at queen b3, I liked queen b3. I thought that that's probably what I would have played because it fixes the pawn structure, and pawn structure is important. The second one is play bishop d1 because it doesn't allow black to create these double isolated pawns. And then play bishop to d2 here. I'm sort of wondering because there's two situations here where there's a basically moves that are played that are not or that are valuing things more than the pawn structure. Because I would say like queen b3, queen takes b3, pawn takes b3, and you fix the pawn structure. That's great. That's important. And then also on the bishop d1 move, the engine seems to value the intactness of white's kingside pawn structure more than I would value that intactness, right? Like I would say like, okay, well, that keeping those pawns together and able to defend each other is more important than the maintenance of, or I would say is more important than getting two bishops to a knight. But the computer actually disagrees with me there. So it makes me sort of wonder if I'm overvaluing the the value of intact pawn structures. That's what that would imply, based on that basically same thing happening twice in this game. So it's an interesting point. So in both of those places, I would have made the error that would have kept white's pawn structure good at the expense of other concerns. Whereas the computer would have made the opposite choice. So that's sort of interesting to me. And then bishop d2 I do think is better. I think bishop d2 is objectively better than bishop to b2 there. Bishop d2 is, it doesn't take the fianchetto, but it takes more purposeful diagonals. The f4 pawns, the f4 square and the b4 squares are good for white there. That's why I would say, no, of course not. I mean, no. 94, I mean, I don't know. The threshold to make that kind of judgment is extremely high, and should be extremely high. I've seen too many people make very spurious accusations, and I mean, I've seen people make some very silly accusations. Sometimes not even for the reason that they think someone actually cheated, to be honest. Sometimes just as like a thing to use for some other type of advantage. So I'm very, very slow to accuse anyone of cheating. You really need you need 100% evidence for that. Otherwise it's just defamatory, to be honest. So anyways, I no, obviously not cheating. Thank you very much for sending it, Zipcag, and thank you very much for joining the stream. Yeah. But yeah, I think if something isn't 100% clear, if you don't really have evidence, it's not an accusation. I've seen that accusation misused at multiple times in my experience with chess, and I've seen it used in places where people didn't really even think their opponent cheated. They just sort of wanted to get the psychological edge of making them nervous. So I always thought that was really ridiculous, and I want to encourage people to really make sure they're 150% sure before making those kinds of assessments. Anyways, yeah, no, thanks a lot, Zipcag. Thank you very much for being here. Tell your friends if you're interested, and yeah, no, really appreciate you being here. I don't know. I don't know that particular story, but I can say without dispute that I have seen people make cheating accusations knowing that they were false. That has happened, and that was really not okay. So I have a very strong predisposition against people do cheat occasionally, and that should be monitored and caught. But I think people making false cheating accusations intentionally, I've seen that those accusations abused. So I have a very visceral reaction to it. Anyways, but not saying that people won't occasionally cheat against you online. That probably will happen. It's happened to me a number of times, but a false positive is so unnecessarily damaging, and I've seen people really abuse it for really not okay reasons. So I set the threshold on that one extremely high. Anyways, cool. On to the next one. We've got Matyop and we've got Eccentric Horse, and I want to get to both of them. Eccentric Horse actually was early in line. Would you like to see your game first or second, eccentric horse, or would you like to see your game now, eccentric horse, or would you like me to go later? I said I was gonna do it. It was originally scheduled for early in the stream. Okay, cool. Yeah, I didn't want to do it while you were still working, but yeah, no, of course, no, thanks. Anyways, here we go. Okay, cool. We'll take it from your perspective. Sounds good. All right, d3, bishop c5, and basically here, this is you know, this is basically normal Italian game type play for black. Black is looking good here. Interesting. Yeah, and it trades off into a queen and pawn endgame. Yeah, sorry, I'm just playing through it because I just want to make sure I fully understand it. Okay, cool. I think this is pretty good for black, and you know, this basically, it's showing equality. A3 is kind of a passive move to make. You know, I know b4 is coming on the next move, but threats of bishop b5 and basically in the Italian game, there's not really that much threat on, you know, there's not really that much threat against, you know, the knight on c3. It's rare that tactically becomes much of a problem. You know, let's say knight c3 here, or so let's say bishop c5, knight c3, bishop b4. This doesn't really do much for white, or it doesn't really do much for black. This threat. On takes, bishop takes c3, pawn takes c3, rook b1. And this threat, you know, of rook b1 on b7 is, I think, probably the best plan for white here. I don't know. Basically, I think a3 is sort of an inefficiency because I don't think that that bishop to b4, bishop takes c3, pawn takes c3 is really that bad, to be honest. So, anyways, I think a3 is an inefficient play for white. Bishop b6 makes sense. d6, bishop e6, pawn takes, and here, you know, I think black is solid. This, you know, this looks pretty good. White still technically has the initiative, but I think from a conceptual perspective, black has the center. Maybe some slight king safety problems. I mean, these white squares are a little bit weak, but overall, this all makes sense for me from black's perspective. Rook's threatening rook on a1, pawn takes, rook e8, and rook e1. Okay. Overall, black is winning. And this was a nice maneuver too. This full rook sacrifice. Good idea. Still, the eval leans towards white, which is kind of impressive here, but interesting. Yeah. Okay. Cool. So in terms of things to improve here, a3 is a sort of a weird move. I wouldn't have played that as white just because I know that the bishop on the b4 e1 diagonal isn't that strong, but it is playable. b4 is probably coming next move. I guess I would play d6 here. I think that's an improvement over h6. In general, h6 weakens. You know, first this knight would have to come all the way to d5. That's definitely possible, but I have a feeling that this line is better for black. Let's see if it is. Bishop g5, and then here, I think you can. I think here basically h6, g4, g5, bishop g3, and black is basically better here. This is this is good for black against white. Pressure like bishop to g4, threats on f3, threats on d4. And basically black is looking pretty solid. Um, anyways, after this, so a3 is an inefficiency. White should continue developing. I think black makes the same error on the next move. So I think d6, which looks forward to bishop playing to g4, is fine. h6 g5 is often very playable in the black side of the Italian game. Forcing the bishop all the way back to g3 is often worth opening up the king side for. In this particular situation, the king can castle queen side still. So like bishop to g4 doesn't cause any problems. So say bishop g5, h5, g5. You can play like bishop to g4 here, followed by queen to d7, and then castle queenside. And basically black's going to be in a pretty good place. This I think is good for black. Basically this opening of the king side is worth it. Basically it's less worth it, I think, to play this h6 move proactively. I think in general, in the black side of the Italian game, you can wait for the bishop to play g5 before playing h6. Similar, conceptually to this a3 move being a bit misplaced. So here, I think black's in a pretty good place. Bishop b6, d6, good stuff for basically. Good stuff for black, even after that sort of slower h6 move. This looks equal or slightly better for me. I think I would play e4 here. I'm not sure what the engine thinks, but I would play e4. Black has a center control. Giving white an isolated queen pawn makes sense and has some value, but I would play e4 here and force the knight somewhere. Knight e1 probably, knight e5 could work, but e4 is the move that I would play. Maintain the big center, keep this all solid, and white's looking pretty good. So yeah, so in terms of improvements, I wouldn't have played h6, and I would have played e4 over pawn takes d4. Pawn takes d4 does mess up white's pawn structure, but I would just keep things complicated here. This also dislocates the knight. I'm looking at like knight e5, but I think you're okay. I don't think white. I think it becomes really a pain for white to defend this accurately. But yeah, the engines are not humans. Engines are better. So anyways, I would play e4 over pawn takes d4 here. This looks good for black. So that's an idea. Now with this this d4 pawn isolated, it is correct that it's the right point of attack for black against white here. I think moves like rook e4 threatening d4 makes sense. And game. But here, I guess what I would say in terms of improvement, basically here from here on, I figure you're sort of equals. There's probably good efficiency, there's probably increased efficiencies in terms of the way that this endgame could have been played. And I don't remember, it ends up in a draw. Okay, cool. Good queen and pawn endgame play, because black's obviously worse down a pawn, right? But good job securing the draw as black. In terms of looking at this, King g8 was a blunder. Yeah, let's look at that in a second. For sure. Here, yeah. Um, yeah, yeah, sure, totally. Yeah. So let's look at King G8. Okay, later. Sure. Here, you mean, right? Oh, right. Yeah, you're absolutely right. Yep, good call. This is, yeah, for sure electric. Yep. Queen e6 looks like a winner for me. Yep, I agree. Yep, that's a winning tactic. Well, I'm glad you dodged that bullet, and basically, but yeah, I think this setting up this perpetual check was definitely a good idea. Queen to e1, and then queen to h4 looks really solid. Um, yeah, right. No, 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 for sure. I mean, those things happen all the time in blitz games. I mean, it's no game is perfect, and the good side is that humans can't jump on tactical errors the same way that computers can. From a conceptual perspective, I guess I would not play h6 here. Just I've played this game many times as black. I think both a3 and h6 are wasted efforts. I think basically things like I think d6, which moves you quicker towards development. Bishop g5, h6, bishop g4, g5. This is actually fine for black. Black can move his king to the king side. And then if white castles king side, then he can line his rooks on g8 and h8 and push hard on the king side there. That can be an improvement. But yeah, h6. So anyways, I would make that piece of guidance. I think h6 is better. Is not a move that's efficient to be played proactively. Um, but this is the one. This is also one that I would question. I think simplifying the center here isn't helpful. I think e4 is like holding this center together makes more sense. Um, it's we saw in that game that it was difficult for black to effectively attack this pawn, even though it was isolated, or to attack it without losing other pawns or other positional characteristics. Like, I guess here I would keep the center complicated. I think basically, to keep the center complicated and displace this knight has more value to you than creating the isolated queen's pawn that's difficult to access. Yeah, no, for sure. No, it was just too it was a good idea, but I think it was just too inaccessible there. Plus, messing up where the knight is a good idea for sure. Um, and yeah, I'll just take a look at move 46, like you said. What's the issue on 46? Um, I mean, I assume this probably has to do with some perpetual. Let's just look to see if there's a perpetual for... I think there is, yeah, there is. So queen g5, king f2, queen d7, king f1, queen there, king there. It's that you've actually gotten a perpetual here. King h3, it's this one. And then if the king ever goes here, 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 then black is basically, then it's a forced draw. That's the question. is because queen to is because you had perpetual and played something else. The engine sees the best move as doing this perpetual mate or perpetual check. So that was the explanation for that change on 46. Yeah, I mean, it's so easy to look in retrospect, right, and to be like, okay, well, these these moves are it's so easy to look in retrospect and be like, okay, these moves are errors. Chess is chess is a very difficult game. But yeah, improvements are, I can just say this one from experience. H6 is not a worthwhile. I mean, my opinion is that H6 is not a worthwhile move to be played proactively. Allowing bishop to G5, then playing H6 leads to situations that are just fine. So does H6 G5. Those lead to objectively fine situations. White can sack the knight potentially on knight takes G5, but you're still fine as black. So that's what I would say there. And then the second thing that I would add is this D4 or this E4, keeping the center complicated. I think might be an improvement there. If white had played knight C3 instead of A3, I vote. Interesting question. I think I still vote no. I think what you do in that case is you play bishop to E6. But say knight C3, D6, bishop to G5, and then I play bishop to E6 here. And I think this is fine. Pretty sure. And then you just trade off on D5. Maybe there's an even better option. That's what I would do there. D6 and bishop E6. But let's see if the engine has something better. So say knight C3. I still lean towards D6 though. Oh, well, if without A3, or sorry, without A3, then you actually can do the bishop to B4. So the engine is advocating bishop to B4 over, in response to bishop to G5, bishop to B4. It is true that the bishop on G5, knight D5 threat is something that that black will have to find a response to, like for sure. But basically, here. Black is just fine. Bishop to b4, pinning the knight seems like a good idea, and in this particular case where there's a3. If both happened, then I'm sort of... We can look at the situation where both of them happen. So a3, d6, knight c3, and then, like, I don't know what the developing move here would be. Probably, say, castling. Then bishop to g5. Well, yeah, or say knight to d5 maybe. You definitely don't want to allow. You're right. You definitely don't want to allow knight d5 and bishop g5 to be played together. That's for sure. But I think you always have a tactical resource after bishop to g5. The only situation in which you wouldn't, right, is one in which the knight was already on d5. So I think h6 can almost always be reactive and not proactive. So like bishop c5 and then d6, knight c3, bishop g4 or something. I mean, this overall plays. I think you can just wait for the bishop to play to g5. I think the proactive move is I think black has better developing moves as opposed to h6. But that's my opinion, and I don't know. It's interesting, right? Good question. But having played the black side of the Italian game many times, I lean towards not playing h6 proactively. D4 here. D4 looks like the other improvement. Yeah, that too. I mean, you know, because black generally does castle kingside there, so having this h6 move in is sort of tricky. But yeah, anyways, this is all sort of an idea, and basically that you know, it was a good game, but yeah, well, no, yeah, I'm surprised by that too, Electric. I would definitely eval this as better for black. But I guess just there's not that many squares that are uncovered. Like, you know, I sort of think that maybe if this was like one further over and then the queen could keep checking on dark squares. But like the issue is basically that so this is where I think the queen and rook endgame is better for black. Like, or where I would say like, oh, I think doesn't that look better for black? But there's a very tactical reason that there's nothing available. There are no checks available. So here, you know, the only check there's literally only one check available for black. It's queen d3. Then white responds f3, and then there's no check available for black. Literally, I mean rook h3, but like there's literally no way that black can advance this. Maybe queen d6, maybe not. But overall, I think black's basically won here. So. Or sorry, white's basically won here. He forces the rook to be sacrificed. But the closest that I ever think it gets from at least like a visual perspective is here, where the pawn is two files away. White pushes, but there's no way to advance like mating threats or anything here. So it's just good for black. I mean, good for white. Sorry, good for white. Queen d3 and f3, and then no more checks. Anyways, interesting game. Thank you very much for sending it, Electric Horse. I was just going to close on one more game by Matt Yop here, and let's take a look. I think this one we can probably do pretty quickly. I think there's a lot of tactics, and it's pretty crazy. Very interesting game, but here I think this was a not the right move. And very interesting one, though. Yeah, no, thank you very much for being here, Electric. I appreciate you being here, and yeah, I hope it's helpful. Feel free to keep sending games. Like, it's definitely yeah, it's fun for me to look over them, and I learn a lot of stuff. So please feel free to keep sending them. So yeah. E3 is an unusual move. It transposes into some D4 openings, so that's okay. But E3 is you know, not the most challenging move for white. Bishop to B5, bishop takes C6 is pretty crazy. Here I would say, yeah, I think the straightforward bishop takes F3 is way better. I think the tactic's kind of cool, right? Because you are actually getting the two pieces for the two pieces, but I think you're trading off your developed pieces, and you know, you're changing your pawn structure in a way that's not super awesome. So bishop takes c6 is an error, is a tactical error. Bishop takes c6, and you can't get both of black's pieces off the board anymore. Bishop b5 was actually okay. Here, and you've basically equalized materially in terms of minor pieces. With bishop takes c6, black can respond to this check with taking, and then you take one of the bishops, but then the other bishop can move away. So here, black ends up with 3 minor pieces to your 2 minor pieces. So tactically, queen takes f3 was better. White is better. White wins. The slip. So I think I would start off by saying, do you really want to be playing e3 on move 1? That's a good question. Don't know. It's up to you. Good question, but I would look at e3 on move one as something to maybe, that's not a popular move at grandmaster level. I think it probably doesn't challenge black as much as move one should. So I would go with I would think about e3 and whether or not that's an opening that fits your priorities. Bishop b5 is very interesting. More conservative. Bishop takes f3 is probably a good choice, but here bishop b5 is also actually playable since it equalizes in terms of minor pieces. You play queen takes bishop, pawn takes bishop, pawn takes bishop, and the things here are are reasonably good for white. This is a relatively good position for white. And white is white's doing fine here. This position, it's not good, but it's a playable game. With bishop takes c6, I think you've made a tactical misplay that will involve you being down a piece, so 3 minor pieces to 2. So I'd look at c6. Hey Matt Yop, here's your game. Yes, I think so. Let me just pull this up. What's your I don't see your name on the schedule, Vertwitch, but let me so I it's on the Discord. Can you see if your game is on the schedule for tonight? Yeah, that's actually super helpful. Like, if it's not on for tonight, you can just send it to me. I'll add it for tonight. And then Vertwitch's game. How about you just resend it to me, Vertwitch? Yeah, I'm very happy to add it, but feel free to just send it, Vertwitch, and we'll get to it tonight. That's fine. Yeah, I would recommend joining the Discord. But yeah, sorry about that, Vertwitch. I'm sorry if there's a confusion there, but feel free to send the game, and we'll add it for tonight. That's fine with me. Yeah, no, thanks, I appreciate it. But yeah, so in this game, wait, how did these games change? Sorry, it was this one. I'm looking for so on this game, Matt Yop. We've already sort of gone over it. You made a really interesting idea. So E3, I think it's up to you, but it's not a very popular move at the highest levels. But if it's one that fits your personal style, then that's cool. The second idea is Bishop B5 was pretty interesting tactical idea. Probably not as good as just taking Bishop, directly, because this this keeps your pawn structure on the queen side intact. But instead, bishop b5, c6, queen takes f6, or queen takes f3, pawn takes b5, pawn takes b5. It's actually fine for white. This sort of messed up white's pawn structure in kind of a a symmetrical way, but overall pretty interesting. And this generally plays out pretty well for white. So looking at more things here. Queen takes f3 is a tactic that involves equal material at the end of it. Bishop takes, bishop takes c6 uses time in such a way that this involves 3 minor pieces against 2. In this case, basically, white is better, or sorry, black is better because it loses the extra piece. So the game's pretty good after game's relatively good for black after the extra piece gets moved away. But there's some errors here for black in terms of moving knight to c5 and giving the piece back. I think that was an error, and basically white's after the piece gets recaptured is in pretty good shape positionally. And then basically black hangs some pieces here, including the knight on e5, and then the rook trading voluntarily trading against the exchange. But basically, I think it's a really interesting question. I like the opening tactics in that one, and basically, Matt Yop, the recommendation that I would give you is the same recommendation I give a lot of people here, which is I would recommend being sure that that you are doing a sufficient amount of tactical training. This kind of volatility, yeah, this is big on tactics, and I think it's great. It's great that you're trying to move forward with chess, and I think that that's really a good idea. But this is a lot of volatility that I think you can do a very good job smoothing out with some tactical training. The tactics training that I recommend is chess.com Puzzle Battle, chess.com Puzzle Rush, Chess Tempo, and like CT-ART is one. It's a standalone program. But I think Tarash has been doing this, and I think I would also recommend to you as well. If you just spend an hour or two on tactics a day for a month or 2 months or for however long you can do it, it will be a very good return on your time in terms of improvement. I think you really will be able to see better combinations during games, and I think that'll really help you in terms of improving your chess. Overall, I think a lot of interesting tactics there. Bishop b5 was a cool idea. I didn't consider that. But I think in terms of, I think you'll really enjoy improving the accuracy in the tactics in your game because you'll get a lot of wins, that you might not have otherwise. So that I think is very important. It's something that everyone has to do if they are serious about improving their chess. Just spend time on tactics, Matt Yop, and see how it goes. And I just want to check in with Vertwitch. Can you just resend the game and we'll do it tonight? Sorry to have difficulty on the schedule, but the schedule is up there, and I hope that's helpful. Okay, cool. Yeah, no, Vertwitch, if you can send over the link, I really want to make sure that I get the game in. I feel bad that I'm pretty sure it was for tonight. I got a live link for tonight. I think that might be the issue. Awesome, cool. My eyes are on the Discord, Vertwitch, and we'll have it. Okay. Yeah. No. Thanks. Yeah. No. I think it'll really help. I think it'll really help for you, Matt Yop. I think you'll be in good place. Sure. Yeah. If you resend it, we'll take a look at it tonight, Vertwitch. Make it the 7th game that we look at tonight. But I think that yeah, I feel bad getting confused on that. So want to make sure that I do that correctly. Okay, cool. Yeah, absolutely, Matt Yop. If you send another game, we'll put it in for. I just want to get Vertwitch in today. This is a special case. If you send a game, Matt Yop. Hey, thank you very much, Swain. Thank you very much for the follow. But yeah, if you if you send another game at Yop, absolutely. Post as many as you want. I'll put them in, as, I just post them to the schedule in the order that they come in. Vertwitch is a special case because I think I messed up my spreadsheet. But yeah, please send that game, Vertwitch. We'll get you in tonight. I want to make sure. I guess I'm going to stay on until you send it, just because I really want to make sure. You can send a link either on the chess Discord or on here. But yeah, that should work. Cool. All right, I see you joined the server, Vertwitch. Let's get that game in. Cool. Yeah, sure. I just want to stay on because I really do. I feel bad. I feel bad if you thought it was today, or I basically messed up. I think I messed up my spreadsheet. So yeah, just put it in the game submission section or even the general section. But I want to just stay on just because I really want to make sure that I do this one tonight for Twitch. Okay, cool. But let's make sure that I get it and that it's a good link and stuff. Okay, cool. Did you send it? Okay, cool. Awesome. Let me just see. I'll just take a look for that link. But we'll take a look at that one tonight at we'll take a look at that one tonight during the 6:05 p.m. stream. Yep. Awesome. All right, that one's in. Thank you very much for sending that for Vertwitch. It'll be tonight at the 6:05 p.m. stream. Sorry for the difficulty with that. But now I have it 100%. It'll be 100% on it tonight at 6:05 p.m. Eastern. And if I hope that schedule works for you. If it doesn't, then it'll be video on demand, which will be up on Twitch for 2 weeks, and then on YouTube forever. So, yeah, definitely feel free to send more. Sorry for the difficulty, and it's going to be on the stream tonight. With that said, thank you all very much for being here. Thank you very much for hanging out and for contributing games to the stream. Yeah, I hope you all have a good one. Have a good day, and yeah, next stream is at 6:05 p.m. Eastern tonight. Thank you all for being here. Have a good one. Good to see you, FIFA Boy, too. Thanks. Have a good one, guys. Bye.